What food has made you wonder, how did our ancestors discover that this was edible? Cashew nuts. The shell is poisonous. The oil from the shell is poisonous. The nut is okay. If you pick one, shell it and eat it, you will get a poison ivy type reaction everywhere it touched you. Potatoes. The leaves are poisonous. The weird bubbly shit on the roots is fine, but only if you cook them, as your wild potatoes can make you quite sick eaten raw. Who saw spiky-ass sea urchins and decided to try them out? Thousands of years ago, everyone in Japan was just like, yeah, it's in the ocean, it's fair game. It's free real estate. Greater than its free meal estate FTFY. Yogurt. Hey man, this is pretty good. What is it? Quote. Don't worry about it. Conversation 2,000 years ago. Yogurt. We're desperate. Just eat it. Artichoke. Let's take that spiky-ass weed that makes your hands taste bitter for days and boil it for an hour or two so we can scrape a tiny bit, if nothing, off the leaves with our teeth. How hungry was that dude? Edit. To be clear, I love artichokes, and they do not require butter or mayo to be delicious. I was at a business lunch as a grown-ass man in my 40s, having never eaten artichoke, and the other guy orders a grilled one as an appetizer. 5 minutes later, I'm still chewing on my first leaf, trying not to show that "why do people eat this?" face when I notice him scraping the leaf with his teeth. That information would have been very valuable ahead of time. I made artichokes a while back. My old roommate, in his 30s, had never had them and wanted to try. I'm chowing down on them, loving the new recipe I had tried. He asks me, are they supposed to be this tough? Much like you. He was chewing the leaves rather than scraping the flesh. Aren't artichokes thistles that were selectively bred to have giant, fleshy flowers? I think someone actually just decided to try and eat a thistle and started growing his favorite ones until they made artichokes. When I was a kid, I thought that if you peeled the leaves off of an artichoke, you were left with an asparagus. Having never eaten an artichoke, I'm still not positive that I wasn't right. The answer is always grains. I can't figure out how our ancestors discovered that prehistoric varieties of wheat or barley were edible. Good question. I can offer you some insight there. When my dad was a kid, on a farm that was just barely more than a homestead, they chewed barley seed for a snack. They didn't have money for gum anyway. As kids out exploring, they hunted too, to supplement the family food supply. Even in the 1980s, when I was a kid, we'd carry a gun with us while exploring the woods. Sometimes we'd get a pheasant to take home for supper. But the way it works is that you're walking mostly aimlessly, running your hand through the grass, and you pull off a seed head and pick the sharp ends and chop off the seeds and pop them into your mouth. If you chew it long enough, you get a sort of a goût monsieur. Just the gluten is left. You've dissolved and swallowed the nutritious parts of the goût monsieur. Barley is tastier than wheat, though wheat makes a better gum. There are plenty of other wild seeds too, though many varieties of grass have tiny seeds. There's lots to snack on if you have eyes and knowledge. It also might be that you come across a berry patch while out and about, and you just pick and eat as you go. You carry some home, and it gets added to the family meal. Maybe you fill your hut with berries. Some days, you come home with a bit of meat, and some sort of fruit or vegetable. Often, nothing. If harvest has already happened, you stop by the granary before heading out, and fill up your pocket with some seed. That's an ancient thing, the very definition of hunter-gatherer. But it didn't really die out like people seem to think it did. It was a fairly significant part of my dad's diet in the 1950s, and I was practicing vestiges of it in the 1980s. I'm sure hunters still do. Greater than when my dad was a kid, on a farm that was just barely more than a homestead. They chewed barley seed for a snack. They didn't have money for gum anyway. Reminded me of my childhood snack. We used to peel off the outer layers of sugar cane and take a huge bite out of it. The fibers were sweet and we'd chew until there was no taste left and spit it out. We pretended we were chewing tobacco or betel nut. Edit. For added info, my childhood was in 1980s Philippines, specifically Negros Islands. Sugarcane is the main food crop there. I carried around a big-ass bolo as a kid to slice up sugarcanes back then. It's awesome to know kids growing up around farms share pretty similar experiences despite differences in location. XD. Surströmming, you know, the Swedish fish that is put underground to rot. IIRC, it was invented accidentally. Salt used to be pretty expensive, so some traders didn't use enough to preserve the fish properly, but sold it anyway. When they came back, they were surprised when the townsfolk asked if they had any more of the fish prepared in that way. But why would somebody eat it? I mean, the way it smells is terrible. Starving people don't have much choice. I'd imagine it's the same way cheese was discovered. We Swedes were desperate for a tradition, so we ate old fish. Cheese. Who was like, I'm gonna eat the solidified part of this bad milk? Quote, question mark. And the process to make cheese is so complicated I can't figure out how it was discovered in the first place. Hey Carl. It's made from sharks, which usually are not edible. IIRC, that's because they lack kidneys bladders. So all the nasty stuff accumulates instead of getting flushed out. Do your own research though, if you want to know for sure. As a matter of fact, however, it can't be eaten unless you gut and decapacitate it, bury it, place stones on top to squish the shark and press the nasty stuff out. Leave it alone for 1 to 3 months. Dig out the corpse and cut it into stripes. Air the stripes for another 3 to 4 months. Remove the brown crust. Sounds delicious. Huh. I dunno. I can imagine how that could happen. Hey Bjorn. I caught this shark. Quote. Odin's cock leaf. That thing smells like piss. Bury it or something. Yeesh. Later that winter. Freya's tits. I'm starving. Are we completely out of food? Quote. Well, there's that nasty poison garbage shark leaf buried a while back. Guess we could dig it up and give it a shot. Worst case, we die of moldy shark poisoning. I guess. Hand me a shovel and a fork. Eric, what I don't understand is how rotting piss shark jerky went from a food of last resort to a delicacy. Worst case, we die of moldy shark poisoning. I guess. Hand me a shovel and a fork. Eric, by locust balls. Bjorn, this shit still smells awful. We're still alive though, so I guess we should stick to it and air it out a bit longer. Agreed. Eric, here, have some Brenovan. Your breath smells like ass. Skull. You know what? At least it tastes better than it smells. Skull. And the Brenovan washes that taste away and gets us drunk. Know what? We could make this a tradition. Durian. Let's take this spiky-ass fruit that smells like shit and crack it open. See some yellow gooey shit and start eating it. It smells rotten. It's the consistency of boogers. It tastes okay, I guess. And an hour after you eat it, you start belching up sickening burps. Greater than you start belching up sickening burps. This is why I think it's the worst fucking thing I've ever eaten. I've had all kinds of weird shit, from canned haggis to fermented fish, but the never-ending durian taste of why burps is the one I regretted most. Fucking vile stuff. Kind of related, but I need to get this off my chest. I love garlic a lot. I put a bunch of it in everything I cook. But last night, I made kale and put so much garlic in it. It was maybe 30% kale, 20% onion, 50% garlic. I had my usual night farts. But when I lifted the covers, my god, it was such a strong scent of pure garlic. Which is where it got weird because I love the smell of garlic. Then I had to pee and my fucking pee smelled like garlic. And my underwear. So like, my vaginal fluid smelled like garlic. Even my skin smelled like garlic. I'm not sure what I did to my body last night, but I think I'm going to do it again tonight. I just needed to share this with someone. Update. Just pooped. Work bathroom now reeks of garlic. Edit. It's cool that so many people can relate or think I'm trash. I appreciate all of you. Edit 2. No, I have never been to the Stinking Rose. I'm in the Midwest y'all, where pepper is too spicy for these people. Edit 3. I just read through this entire comment thread and gotta monsieur, y'all are some crazy cunts. Shout out to the Italian man's extreme thread, and every horrible burp fart experience from weird food combos. I love you all. S. Civet coffee. Although more of a recent discovery. 18th century. But who in their right mind decided, I'm going to make coffee with this animal's poop? Quote, question mark. I'm surprised I see no mention of coffee in general. How on earth did people figure out to pick the berries? Ferment them, dry them, roast them, grind them, put that into boiling water, filter it out again and drink the fluid? Arabian herders saw their goats eating coffee berries and acting energized afterwards. People began eating the berries. It took a long time before they learned to just boil the bean. I believe this is the accurate coffee origin story. The Arabian herders were Ethiopians. Wild, bitter almonds have a significant amount of cyanide in the monsieur whatever tribe in the Middle East that decided to keep breeding them and eating them anyway until they cultivated a non-poisonous cultivar was brave as hell. Or desperate. Honey. Who the fuck looked at a nest full of angry stinging little demons and thought they're hiding something delicious in there? I know it. Quote. Probably watched The Trouble a Bear Would Go to Eat It and copied it. We need Reddit for bears now so that we can go there and ask them how they discovered it. Sentry eggs. Take duck eggs. Wrap them in hay and mud and ashes. Legend has it horse urine used to be used too, because it's alkaline. Wait a few weeks, months. Break them open whereupon they are gray and jelly-like and pungent, smelling slightly of ammonia. Boil and eat. I love them, but I really have to wonder who thought that eating them was a good idea in the first place. Or perhaps, how hungry they were that eating them seemed like a good idea. They might have just forgotten the egg and one day they were so desperate for food they remembered about that egg and said fuck it. That's the story of Worcestershire sauce. Some dude had a barrel of stuff that didn't taste so good at first, so he just forgot about it for a year or two, or more, and went back to try it again and was like, oh damn, this is fire now. While Leon Pims claims that it's more of a humble brag if the original sauce was too powerful so we had to let it dilute so you could handle it. The reality is Worcestershire sauce is a pretty direct descendant of garum. They knew what they were doing. Saffron. Who the fuck figured out that the stamen from a specific crocus flower, when picked and dried then steeped in warm liquids, was going to be delicious? Easy. At first they wanted to extract the color and use it to dye stuff. Then they discovered that it also tastes good. This underground nut that is used in Nanya cooking. It's poisonous, but you can eat it after it has been stored underground covered in ash for God knows how long. Buicolic I think it's called. Feel like I am gonna ask what Nanya is and get a response like Nanya business kiddo. Oysters. How could someone think to eat something that looks like it came out of a bull's nose? Probably starving. That's probably the answer to 90% of this thread. Somebody was starving, and if they had the choice between that thing that might be edible and dying of starvation, they took their chances. Plus the fact that they probably saw some animal cracking one open and eating the contents and thought, if that otter can eat it, I probably can too. The answer to most of these is someone saw an animal do it. I just want to see a video of an animal boiling brain-looking mushrooms twice before eating them. Now, swallows spit nests. African or European swallow, asking the important questions. Maybe it grabs it by the husk. It's not a question of where he grips it. Gooey duck. Looks like a dismembered penis. Squirts salty liquid at you when you touch it. Gooey duck. Isn't that a Pokemon? Psyduck or Geodude? But gooey duck is actually pronounced gooey duck, so it doesn't really fit with either. Gooey dude. If history tells you anything, if it looks like a penis, Every male wanted to eat it to make their penis bigger. Thank you so much for watching and have a good day.